I was born in Birmingham, Alabama in the year of 1957, July the 29th. And I didn't know it, but I was an undesired child at the time. My mother had me, my biological mother had me and gave birth to me, but really didn't want me. I was like an accident. I was the result of a house party and everybody's genes getting thrown out of whack, and I came along behind that, and she had put me up for adoption, even abortion if she could have. But my grandmother intervened and told my mother that she would raise me, and you know, naturally I learned all this growing up. But I was raised by my grandmother from the time I came out of the hospital all the way until I was 11 years old. She died in 1968. And she was really all the mother I ever really knew. She was all the love that I had ever had. And growing up in Birmingham during the 60s, I was exposed to a lot of that church bombing stuff, dogs and water hoses and Ku Klux Klan marches and all this kind of stuff about blacks go to the back and ride at the back of the bus, and all that was still going on when I was a child. And I saw it going on around me, and I knew something wasn't right about the whole environment, the whole atmosphere that I was living in, as far as saying when we used to go downtown to pay bills and all that. She could never really just enjoy the day with me because of the way that she had to do things. We could never go in the front door of a certain store. We used to have to go around to the side and in the back. We couldn't eat right here. We had to move over and all that kind of stuff. So we used to have to limit how we did what we did as far as paying bills in the restaurants that we stopped in, just trying to enjoy the day. She worked as a domestic house cleaner in a very rich neighborhood in Birmingham called Mount Brook. And she was making $35 a week, which was good money at that time. But she really couldn't spend much time with me because she had to get up early in the morning. She didn't drive. She was functionally illiterate, couldn't really read that good. Had to catch the bus early in the morning, way before daybreak, and she'd stay over there at their house cleaning and cooking and taking care of their household until late at night, sometime 9:30 at night when she'd be coming home. And I wouldn't see all that day, but she had raised me to be responsible for myself. And all the while I was doing good in school and minding everybody in the neighborhood, I was still worried about my grandmother because I never really saw her as much as I wanted to, but I know that she was out working, doing what she had to do because she wanted to provide for me. And all the other negative things that were going on, it really didn't matter because her love basically overrode everything that I was seeing and everything that I experienced along with her experiences as well. And like I said, she passed away in 1968, and I was devastated behind that. Everybody came down to the funeral. My real biological mother, who I hadn't seen but once before her funeral, my grandmother's funeral, that made the second time I saw her in my life, and she really looked at me like I knew it was her because I heard other people in the family tell me about who she was, and they were talking. And she just looked at me like I was just another face in the crowd that was there attending the service. And when the funeral was over, she went back to Bridgeport, Connecticut, where she was staying at. And I had an uncle that stayed in Evanston, Illinois. It was a big debate about where I was going to be staying, who was going to raise me up. I had 4 uncles and my mother. They were brothers and sisters, my grandmother's children. And my uncle in Evanston, Illinois said, well, he'll let me stay with him. And I went to Evanston, Illinois for close to a year, a little over a year, going to junior high school up there. But he and his wife fell out with each other. He used to do a lot of drinking and staying out in clubbing, and his wife left. Both of them were from Birmingham as well, but they had went up north after they got married. And she sneaked back down to Birmingham on him one day while he was at work and left me in the house to let him know when he got off work what she had did with her and her son. They had went back to Birmingham, left me up there with him. So for a couple more weeks after that, he and I stayed together, but he saw that he couldn't take care of me the way he wanted to, so he brought me back to Birmingham, where I stayed with my youngest uncle. And at this particular time, I was 12. And when I got with them, I think that I really went through some traumatic experiences that I never really have gotten over to this day, because being raised around my grandmother, she was basically expressing love, love, love. And the things that I didn't understand, she explained it to me through love. And when I was around these people, my in-laws and stuff, through marriage to my youngest uncle, My aunt, she never really liked me. I was older than the two boys that she already had when my uncle married her. And she had been around my grandmother's house a couple of times before my grandmother passed. And she kind of resented how my grandmother used to look out for me and take care of me and used to try to give me the best that she could possibly get for me. And I think she still had those resentful feelings in her heart when I came to live with them. And she just had in the back of her mind that she was going to show me that I wasn't really all that my grandmama had trumped me up to be, some kind of vendetta she had in that area there. And I felt it every day, basically, in that household. And I had nowhere else to go but there, but she would take and cook a meal. Say, for instance, we'd have living rice, gravy for dinner. And I was older than her two boys, so, you know, growing and out doing sports activities, my appetite was pretty ferocious. But when we come in and sit down at the dinner table, she would always feed the younger boys more than I could get. They would get the extra bread and the biggest pieces of chicken, the biggest piece of liver, whatever, the most rice and all this, and can always have second, but that was something that was rare for me. And I could see the difference in the treatment in the household. She would basically let me know in a non-verbal way that her kids came before me. And I accepted that. I took the role of trying to clean up everything in the house, trying to empty the garbage, make sure all the housework is done, to try to win her love to me and to show her that, you know, I want to be a part of this, I want to be accepted. But it never came to that. It was always when we went shopping for school clothes, she would let them pick out the clothes that they wanted. And here I was older than them. I could never pick out what I wanted. I'd always let them know that I like this or like that. And she would fit it up again and say, oh, that don't look like that. Throw it back on the rack. I'm going to get this right here. And that was the end of that. But they could always put back what they didn't like and get, you know, and kids look at this kind of stuff. And it kind of had an effect on them. So I eventually figured out that she really didn't care anything about me. There was no love in the house of my uncle. He was an alcoholic. He was working, and he was functioning illiterate himself. He could barely read, and he never really had a large pay scale style job. So he used to work like cutting grass at Elmwood Cemetery or fixing. He used to be good with his hands, mechanics, fixing folks' cars. He was a shade tree mechanic. He used to make most of his money like that. And I used to try to tell him, by him being my blood, I used to try to tell him about how my auntie was. And, you know, love being blind sometimes, he just couldn't see it because when she used to do this kind of stuff, it was always when he wasn't around anyway. So he never saw signs of it. But she kind of made me know it every chance she got when we were one-on-one that she really didn't like me. So I started, when I got into high school, I started going to different little social gatherings, and I started hanging with guys that were doing drugs. And hanging with those fellas, they kind of like pulled me on in, and I started enjoying myself. And they were showing me more love on the street corners and in our little hideaway than I was really getting at the house. So that drew me out of the house and more into the streets. And as I entered the 9th and 10th grade at a West End High School in Birmingham, I really started experimenting with drugs. And the gathering that go along with that, acid, angel dust in the marijuana and all that kind of stuff. And to be accepted into the gatherings that I was a part of, I was more or less like the youngest, but they used to use me to do things to prove myself to them. And eventually I ended up embarking on a life of crime because we started stealing. They showed me how to burglarize, they showed me how to steal. Next thing I know, we robbing and all this. And eventually I ended up in prison behind murder case, rape, robbery, mayhem, and all this, hanging with them. And I still didn't really understand how all this had came about. I was 16 years old. I was in jail. My grandmama had died when I was 11, and for 5 years I was tossed around back and forth, trying to find love. And as I seeked that love to come to me in different areas, I just got caught up in what was going on in the streets and what was going on with all the fellas that was around me that I wanted to be like. I was trying to emulate their lifestyle. And like I said, at 16 I was in jail, looking at life in prison. I was fortunate at that particular time that they had abolished the electric chair, because the thing that I had been a part of truly had warranted that. And I think it was maybe a year or two before they had just stopped executing people in the electric chair in Alabama. And I fell in right in that gap right there, so I got a life sentence. And I still, when you be on acid, anybody who's experienced drugs, and ever been affiliated with acid and hard hallucinogenics like that, you'll know that you'll have what's called a flashback. You can not be to use that drug for quite some time, but you can just be somewhere talking or sleeping or just laying down, and you'll have that whole feeling come back over you again, just like you done used that drug because it's still in your system. And I was still in the midst of having flashbacks from all the drug abuse I had been a part of when I was in the county jail, and it still hadn't dawned on me a lot of the stuff that I had been a part of until they took me to court and found me guilty. And I pleaded guilty because they told me, if you don't plead guilty to this like that, we know you with them other guys, but you ain't gonna tell on them. That was a code we had. If you get caught, you just by yourself. So I didn't tell on nobody, and they said, well, we know somebody else was with you, but since you ain't gonna tell on them, we're gonna do you like this and do you like that if you don't plead guilty. So the lawyer that I had convinced me to go ahead on and plead guilty, and they ran the rest of my time in with the life sentence that I have now. And like I said, I was 16 years old, but at the time I was committing crimes, I was 14, 15, and had never been in any trouble before. So here I am today. I'm 42, and I've been in prison 25 and a half years. When I first came, everything that I was a part of on the street, I kept it going when I first got locked up. I was 5'1", 121 pounds, a very small fella in a big system that really, it was by any means necessary that you had to survive. And I found myself what they call laying bones. I found myself doing things to let everybody know that I wasn't intending to go out like this, like that. Like a lot of fellas come to prison, they get raped, they get mutilated and all that, because I had just made my mind up that when I came down, I'm gonna be this way, and that's how it's gonna be. And after I saw that I can impose just as much harm on the next man that he thought he could do to me, and they saw that I had no reservations about doing it, I started building up a reputation, so I just had to keep that reputation going. And I got caught up in those cycles. So for the first 7, 8 years in prison, I had nobody to come see me. I didn't get no mail. I was just living like a wild animal, breaking in people's boxes. When other guys used to go to the store, we used to tote money in our pockets back in those days. And a lot of guys used to go to the store. I used to rob them when they come from the soon they spend their money, buy something, I rob them, throw a shirt over their head, put a knife around their neck, take the bag from them, and run down the hall. Part of all that kind of stuff, shooting dice, gambling, breaking in other people's lockers when they put the stuff up. I've been a part of all that negative stuff. And that was the only way I could live at that particular time. That's all I saw. Because it was like an animalistic environment. And I just had determined that I wasn't going to be sucked in by it. I'm going to be one of the survivors, But fortunately, as I was going through that, I was picking up a lot of information from older guys that really saw that I had potential, higher potential than what I was really exhibiting at that particular time. And they would always tell me things to try to give me insight and information and lift me up to see higher than what I was looking at. And I could really understand what they were saying, but I just wasn't ready to do that yet, because I felt as though to do what they were saying would make me look weak, would make me look like, okay, well, I done knuckle on and I done fell to the wayside or whatever. And in prison, that can be a tragic thing, especially back in the 70s when I had came. And one day, though, I was singing with a gospel group. We call ourselves the Dynamic Gospel Jewels. I just sing second tenor. And we were good vocally, but we had no spiritual life whatsoever. In fact, we used to go walk around the buildings and around the track and smoke reefer before church service. All we wanted to do was sing. We just wanted to get in there. If any female came to church, we just wanted to get on the microphone and try to impress one of them females so that we can have us a girlfriend when it's all said and done, when it's over with. That's what it was all about. Who can look the sportiest, the flies, like we used to call it, looking fly, under the influence of cannabis and doing anything else we wanted to do in the church. And we were just singing. We didn't have that spirit in us that we were supposed to have. And one day we came to church. Sister McKenna, Christian Concern for Prisoners, used to come up once a month, the last Sabbath in every month, if I'm not mistaken. And on this particular day, we was under the impression that she was going to bring a lot of females with her, so we got high, got ready to sing. But that's when I ran into Brother Richard Bland and Sister Carolyn Bland. And when the service got started, some of the fellas used to tell me, said, man, that old dude, that look just like he can pass for your daddy, man, you know. I looked at him, I kind of, old boy kind of favored me a little bit. I don't know what it is. So we, we are under the influence and we playing with one another. We call it janking. So we janking in the back of the church, laughing and hee and ha ha. But all the while, something serious and clicked in the back of my mind. So I told him, I said, well, we got a little while before we sang. Let's go back outside. So we went around the track and smoked some more marijuana and came back to church again. And by the time we got back up to the service, well on the way. But we never did. I listened to Brother Bland and Sister Bland sing a song. They sung the 23rd Psalm, if I'm not mistaken. They sung whatever word they sung that day, because like I said, a lot of stuff I've done, I've been a part of, I can't even remember. I was so bugged out on drugs. But I know that they were singing from the Bible and they were making such beautiful harmony. And by me calling myself into the music, my ear was leaning towards that, and I could hear, I said, man, that's the prettiest song I ever heard in my life. And I really stopped and just listened to what they were saying. And they were singing from their heart, man, and something just came over me. That all of the games and all the other things that I was a part of and I wanted to keep going, before I heard that, I wanted to stop it. And I know now that was God's precious Holy Spirit moving on me. So when the service was over, everybody was gathered around fellowshipping, and me and my little crew was still in the back of the church, and they would dare me to go up there and say something to them. Cause we were saying, well, man, I do like your dad. Y'all go tell him you need a daddy, man. So it was more like a do or dare type situation. Oh, we don't believe you go up there, so I bet you I'll go. So I go on up through the crowd, and some guys was taking Brother Bland's hand and talking to him at the time that I was trying to get to him. So I just moved everybody out the way. I just pushed my way up through the crowd and just backed guys to the left and right. And I stepped up to him. I was right in his face, and I told him, I said, hey, man, I said, my name Andre, man. I need a daddy. So he didn't really know how to interpret that or how to respond to that, because it was just a shocking thing. Just somebody just come up out the clear blue asking for a father like that. And he said, what you said? I said, and I was saying it like I meant it, like I'm about ready to fight. I said, I need me a daddy, man. Me and you look just like you all be my dad, and I need me one. And so he bagged up and looked at me like, this is one of the boldest little fellas I've seen in my life. And his first response, he called his wife Precious, Sister Bland. He said, Precious, come out, Precious, listen at this. He said, tell her what you just said. And so to me, inside of me, that was like a challenge, like I dare you to say that again. So that made me right. I said, man, I need me a daddy. That's what I told him. And who you is? So they were looking at me laughing. So he pulled me to the side and we went to talk. He said, why you said? So I explained some things to him about who I was and how I had been living and how life had brought me all the way to the point where I was in prison, and that I had nobody in my life. I was just on my own, because when I got locked up, all the people who were like my in-laws and the few little biological kin people that I had left around Birmingham, they just, when I got locked up, it was over with. I was thrown away. I was just on my own. And I explained that to him. And so he gave me the phone number and the address. He said, okay, right, man, get in touch with me. He said, I promise you I'm going to get back in touch with you. But to my, little to my understanding, little to my knowing, he went right head on and started talking to the chaplain at that particular time, who was Chaplain Curtis Browder. And he asked for some information on me, and Chaplain Browder explained some things to him about who I was and what I'd been through. And one day I was outside shooting basketball, and they called me, Andre Wallace, report to Hall 1. And whenever you offer to a criminal lifestyle and you hear your name over the intercom, all of a sudden like that, you get scared. You go to thinking, okay, I done did something wrong. I'm trying to put him out. What in the world are they calling me for? But I didn't know that Brother Bland and Sister Bland had came back to see me. They was in the chaplain's office, and he was sending for me. And they wanted to sit down and talk to me and find out further about who I was and what was going on with me, because they wanted to help me. And from that point on, God had blessed me with a mother, a loving father, and a loving family that consists of sisters and brothers who have now had their own children. Now I'm an uncle, and they love me. All the kids love me. And one of the things, though, that really, I guess you might say, profound, outstanding situations is where my spiritual life was being worked on. I felt guilty already, but I never would admit a lot of things. Admittance was something that I never could fess up to. That just said, well, you caught me red-handed, I still didn't do it. You know, I had one of them kind of attitude. You know, I got the crumbs on my hand out the cooking job, but I didn't do it. It wasn't none of me. You know, I was one of them kind of fella. And I never would confess anything that you know, and the Holy Spirit started dealing with me on that. And in the back of my mind, being raised the way I was raised, the moral and ethics that was embedded in me from early childhood on up by my grandmother, I knew that committing the crimes I had committed, I was dead wrong. I knew that, but I just couldn't confess at that particular time because that was just the way of the world. That's all I knew, and that was the way of the world that I was living in. But Brother Bland and Sister Bland started showing me love. They started teaching me. They started giving me Bible study. They gave me the book, The Desire Ages. I read that. And they were steady showing me love and feeding me spiritually. And for years, it just really, it didn't catch on. It was there for me, and I was okay. I always been somewhat able to catch on real quick to a lot of things. And I could see what they was doing. They wanted to be in my life so they can help me on the spiritual base, but I was still on that carnal base. I just need me a physical mom and dad to just show me some straight love, and I'd be all right for a minute. That's all I was looking for. I just needed them hugs. I just needed some attention, and that's all I really wanted. But they saw beyond that, and they also saw through God's grace and His revealing mercies in their life, they also saw that I could be more than what I was at that particular time when I first met them. So I lied to them. They done caught me in lies over and over and over again. I had told them I had quit singing in the rock band. I told them I had quit smoking cigarettes. I told them I quit smoking dope. I quit this. And somehow or another, always they find out that I've been lying. But they never would get hostile with me, never would get mad. They never would get to the point where they said, well, we give up on you. They just caught me in a lie and still showed me love, over and over and over again. And after a while, that kind of stuff beats you down. So, showing me love and coming to see him and buying me clothes and shoes and sending me money and accepting my phone call. And I began to feel the Spirit kept on working with me until I finally got to the point to where in 1987 I got baptized and I went on and stepped up and accepted all the things that I knew I was supposed to have been doing years and years ago. I just went on and said, I'm finna start living for Christ. I'm finna put down all this running behind the dope because I was doing a lot of smuggling inside the institution. I called myself doing some prison pimping, different girls on the vision yard, different guys, sisters, whatever. I called myself fly guy. You step out on the vision yard and try to see somebody who I feel like is worthy of my presence, and I stepped to him and started talking, and we used to call it knocking one off. I try to knock me one off every week that I feel like gonna send me money, this and that and the other. And that went on and on and on, and they used to tell me about all that. But I still couldn't, at that particular time, I just couldn't. So eventually when I got baptized, I went on and said, I'm going to accept everything for what it is and just work from there. And from that point on, the Lord has been moving in my life. I've been through all kind of programs since I've been incarcerated. And I started doing that because of the love that they showed me, and they said, you need to start doing things that will help you like that. So I started going to personal development. I started going to anger and stress management. I went to the SOA program. I went to substance abuse program. I went to AA, ENA, and everything else that they had to offer. I took it, as well as I got 2 college degrees, two associate college. I went on and finished college, got my GED, and got 2 associate degrees, associate in art and associate in science degree, and went on to get my bachelor's degree from Faulkner University, emphasis in business administration. And I've never really, since I allowed God to come into my life, and I really just took this thing serious about who I am, where I'm at, and what I got to do, I've never really thought about turning around, because I always have been a stand-up type guy. The thing about me was to get me to say it out of my mouth, because I always been the kind of guy that if I say it, then that's what you can expect. That's how my reputation was with a lot of fellas through the system in my earlier years. If I tell a guy, listen, man, you through, I'm gonna do something to you. Well, he already know that he can get ready, because that my word was my bond. One way or the other, he got some trouble coming out of me. And if I said it, then that's what it was. But the thing was to get me to say it. So I never would say a lot of things, because I always know a man's word is bond. I always have believed in that, even in my dirty dealing. That's all we had when we dealt with each other, criminal to criminal, was our word. You know, okay, man, your word, your rep and all this. Okay, I believe in you. I trust you to do this and I trust you to do that. Honor among thieves, so to speak. And that I've always been high on that. So when I was converted and I started living for Christ, then I understood even better how a man's word is supposed to be born, how a man is supposed to stand on what he speaks and represent. And that's how I live throughout the system. And everywhere I go, I try to be a stand-up type guy. A lot of times, depression and anxieties will strike me or around me with somebody else. But all the while, I've learned how to look up and call on God to give me strength. Pray that Jesus would lead me through all of the depression, through all the trials and tribulation, push me, carry me, tote me, whatever it got to do to get through this. I'll call on His Holy Spirit to teach me and to show me what I got to do. Because when I got baptized, one of the main things I wanted more than anything else was to be able to see for myself, because I got in trouble following the other crowd. I couldn't see for myself what the future held for me, living with them and hanging with them and doing all the kind of stuff that we used to do together. So I prayed for God's spirit of discernment. I didn't pray to get me out of prison. I didn't pray for riches and all that. I prayed for God to give me the gift of discernment so that I can see for myself. That's all I want to do. Show me where it is I need to see. Let me see what road I need to travel on, and I'll do it. And when I got baptized in 87, the Lord had gave me that gift. And ever since then, I've been using it. That's why you hear a lot of people saying, well, Andre, he helped me this. But the Lord has given me a gift to see into their lives, because the things that He revealed to me and them are the same things that I went through myself at some point or another. And one of the reasons why I dedicate so much of my time to helping the youth is because when I was young coming through prison, a lot of guys dedicated time to helping me and trying to lift me up. One of the reasons why I try to intervene in a lot of the violence that go on, especially a lot of racially motivated stuff, because I see now through an eye that is clearer than the eyes that I had when I first got locked up. A lot of time in prison, you have a lot of racial stuff going on, black against white and all that. And I used to be a part of that. And I used to think that every white man was out to get me, because coming up in Birmingham as a young boy, that's what I was socialized into. All the white folks had all the money. You had black people hanging from telegram poles with a Ku Klux Klan and drove through and snatched somebody up, or throw the Molotov cocktail in their house with a cross burning in their yard. And I always thought that white folk were bad. So growing and maturing like I have, and really understanding that all that is of the devil, and good and bad can come either way you want it, you know. And I've seen how a lot of times that some of the guys around here in the system, they hold those same type feelings that I once had about white folks bad, man. And anytime you get a chance, you supposed to do something to one of them. And I have stood in the middle of potential race riots, stopping these guys, a lot of gangbangers and stuff I deal with, trying to get them to get on the right track. I give my life to them every day, because I went through all that, and I understand them. And I also want them to understand me and understand what's really going on that's bigger than what they're involved in. And so there have been several situations where a white guy and a black guy get into it and it begins to get bigger. And I've been dead in the middle of it, putting my life on the line, because I don't want to see that. Leave this man alone, man. It ain't like that. Like you trying to interpret it, oh, man, that white boy. No, man. This is a man just like you. If he made a mistake, forgive me like you would forgive me. And so I had to teach this in order for them to really understand it and listen to me when those times come. I had to be living that every day. And that's what I do. Every day I make sure that I go around and I talk to different brothers, different guys all over the institution, and keep them motivated to do the right thing. And in return, I get strength from them. Just sitting down talking to them and walking with them and knowing that we shared in the same fight together. And one of the things that I've learned over the years, really, it's just like the scripture said in Matthew chapter 6, dealing with laying up treasures on earth where man can steal them, where they get rusted, where the moths get to them. It's a difference in laying up treasures on earth as opposed to laying up our treasures in heaven. And that's one of the things I look at, even though I've accomplished a lot of things inside the system, program-wise, school-wise, and I've taken the education that I've received and I've developed it further, into presenting skits and plays, certain using using drama as a vehicle to express certain ideas that I want to relate about the ills of society, as it has plagued many people who are confined now by drugs, illiteracy, and all. I found out that the light that God has given me and the knowledge that I receive is something through education, is something that I got to use now. I can't wait until, say for instance, I'm released, if I'm ever released or whatever, to say that, okay, I got all this now. Now once I go, this is when I don't feel like that about it. I feel like a man got to be what he's going to be right now. Because when the door opens, you don't have time to change. It's not like a miraculous change is going to happen when the door opens. Whatever I am now, that's what I'm going to be when I get there. So I try to be the best that I can be now so that when I get there, I'll be the best that I can be.